Welcome, welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 459. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me, per usual, Gail from nyflights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and the Inscriber. What's going on, Daniel and Gail?
Oh boy, we're still processing a whole lot of stuff, so it's time to talk about it. Talk therapy.
Yeah,
Not on the
very interesting.
power
Very interesting
part.
times.
Yes.
Yeah. Particularly when it comes to one Anthony Joshua, which we will talk about shortly. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report, live YouTube show, podcast, blog, site, etc., discussing all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, it will get discussed. If you want to find out any and all information, please go to the site for the time being, p4pboxreport.com. If you wish to email us with any questions or comments, you can do so. Excuse me, p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you will find links to where to check out Pound for Pound Box Report all over social um, medium realm, link to the YouTube channel, link to the Facebook, Twitter, IG page, also links to if you wish to donate, um, you can do so via Cash Me and PayPal. I suggest doing it via PayPal because Cash Me has updated their policy. You can only donate a certain amount per day, per week, per month. I don't know why they're doing that, but it's been all kinds of hassles. Also on the site, um, in the podcast realm, wherever you listen to your favorite podcast, there are links on there to catch Pound for Pound Box Report, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Anchor, be it Spotify. Again, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, you should be able to find Pound for Pound Boxing Report. For my fitness enthusiasts out there, as we're getting ready, we're officially in fall now. Before you know it, Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas will be coming up. And I, like everybody else, tend to eat a little bit more during that time of year. So if you wish to get your body right, well, keep your body right as we head towards the end of 2024. Please check out the links to Body, formerly known as Beachbody On Demand. Body has fitness programs for all suitable interests and goals. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, please check out 10 Rounds, and that is a boxing based program, 6 weeks, 3 days a week of boxing based cardio, 2 days a week of weightlifting. At the very least, please check out Body and take advantage of the 14-day free trial that they offer that goes throughout the year. For 14 days. You'll get free access to any and all programs on Body. Let's get things going. I mentioned, Gail, Daniel mentioned some of the interesting things that transpired, and let's begin, of course, with the main fight of this past weekend. In front of a record crowd at Wembley in London. You had Anthony Joshua attempting to become a three-time heavyweight champion. He fought Daniel Dubois, and um, there were some, more than a few, Gail, who felt that Dubois was riding a serious wave of momentum and would end up beating Joshua. But I don't know if anybody saw what transpired this past weekend, as from the opening bell, Dubois basically steamrolled AJ, hurt him with every hard punch that he threw. AJ had no answers. He went down in the first round. He was hurt every round. Rounds 3, 4, it could have easily been stopped. He was hurt and wobbly on his feet at both of those rounds. Joshua tried to make a comeback at the beginning of round 5, actually hurt Dubois, but Joshua got a little bit too cocky, came in with his hands open, and then boom, Dubois hit him with a picture perfect right hand while Joshua was on the attack, put Joshua down. Too hurt to continue. Dominant performance overall by Daniel Dubois. And now the question is, and this is basically the title of this particular episode, I'll paraphrase. Um, is AJ done? Is this the end of Anthony Joshua? Coming off of the 2 fights against Ngannou and against Wallin, um, Joshua looked like he was on the uptick of resurgence, but in this fight, he looked like the shell of the fighter that became two-time unified champion. He got bodied. He got dog walked.
Is it the end of Anthony Joshua? I don't think so, but it is the end of the 3-division world champion aspiring Anthony Joshua, or 3-time champion, not 3-division, pardon me. Dubois and his team, forget about all the gossip about there being some kind of strife between Dubois and his trainer, Ben Charles, who was ill before the fight. You don't come around a fighter during fight week if you're sick, possibly blow out the fight. They came up with the perfect plan and they executed to perfection. And it was possible for one significant reason, something we have talked about on this show repeatedly over the last year. Activity matters. This was Dubois' 4th fight in 13 months. For a top-level fighter, particularly a heavyweight, that is a very busy, impressive schedule. And he's had great wins ever since that terrible performance against Alexander Usyk. Dubois, still a very young fighter. He is the youngest top heavyweight among the top 20, and he's the only one under 30 years old. He bit down. He decided to answer the question, how bad do I want this, with, I want this hellishly bad. I will do whatever it takes. He did it. And what we saw Saturday was the result of that. Now, I don't think people were horribly surprised to see him win against Jarrell Miller, but I do think people were much more surprised to see his performance against Filip Hrgović, who was being looked at as the future of the heavyweight division. And not only is all the activity and all those wins building your confidence along the way, it gave Dubois a whole new attitude. The way he carried himself in the ring, the way he looked fight week, ready to go, very serious. He's always been kind of a soft-spoken guy, but, he was focused. And the way to get to Joshua is to strike early, put him on the back foot early, and it rattled his cage beyond just physically tossing him to the canvas. In the first seconds of the first round of the fight, he just never regained any confidence. He was going backward the entire time. He finally decided, after being knocked down 3 times entering the 5th round, that he needed to go for broke, if he had any chance of winning. And with heavyweights, and with any power puncher, that's a possibility. And by God, it looked for a few brief seconds for his fans that it was going to happen when he landed those right hands. And then he got greedy. He got greedy and moved back in. And Dubois was ready for him with one of the best counterpunch knockouts you've seen since Juan Manuel Marquez took down Manny Pacquiao. And like Pacquiao, not quite as suddenly, Joshua was face down on the canvas, could get up, and that was it. And suddenly, there is a big shakeup in the heavyweight division. And I think it will, in the long run, be good for boxing, and we can talk about that next.
To Gail's point, Daniel, Dubois was on attack mode from second one, didn't give AJ room to breathe, didn't give him room to get comfortable. And I think it shocked him. And then when he got hit with power, it's like he hits him and hurts him before AJ could get really, really warmed up. And he never recovered from that early onslaught. Gail is also right in saying how activity matters. Dubois, only 27. He can afford to keep fighting at the rate that he's fought, what basically 4 times in a year, and it's only improved him not just from a technical standpoint, but I think from a confidence standpoint. He is a fighter full of belief. We saw it in this fight, and afterwards, he's saying he wants any and everybody, whoever wants smoke. He apparently is ready for him.
Yeah, this was a story, a fight of so many stories. First, in many ways, how overconfident Joshua came in to this fight, because even up to the lead-in, he tried to show that I'm the former pound for pound champion. I'm the guy people want to see, not you, Dubois, and try to, like I said, big brother him in a way. And it showed a little bit just how uncharacteristically lackadaisical he was on defense and in telling his punches.
The fact that his head stayed low throughout, he looked so stiff in there.
Yeah.
It's like everything that he learned that we saw in his previous fights under Ben Davison, it just completely went out the window. I don't know what that was from him from a defensive standpoint.
Yeah. First, it's the fact that 2 of the knockdowns, including the one that finally put him down for good, came off throwing the laziest uppercuts that you can see, that Mr. Magoo could see that AJ was throwing, which, like I said, left his chin wide open for the ball to land his overhand right. And ultimately, it's also not only the factor of being worn down, it's also the factor of adversity. Because this isn't like a young Daniel Dubois who came in and was shepherded carefully and landed in this fight just because of a mandatory situation or because he got gifted a title. We have to remember, compared to some of the challengers that Joshua faced after his mental breakdown at the hands of Alexander Usyk, like I said, Jermaine Franklin, Otto Wallin, Francis Ngannou, Jermaine Franklin serviceable domestic level. Otto Wallin serviceable, if anything, fringe contender. And Ngannou was just mainly a special attraction that you had to deal with because Tyson Fury didn't bother to train to fight him. Compare this to Dubois, the road that Dubois had to go through. Losing to Joe Joyce the way he did, not only getting knocked down, but having his orbital bone broken. And then losing while showing good measure of himself to Usyk, and then coming back the way he did in the fights that he had to come back from. It showed a little bit more metal to me with Daniel Dubois coming in, because Daniel Dubois understood the assignment of, I'm not going to get the benefit of the doubt against Anthony Joshua. If I have any close rounds, there's a possibility that they're going to throw it straight to AJ. So he did the smart thing and attacked from the beginning, but he didn't attack sloppy. He in many ways also used the Andy Ruiz playbook in many ways, because remember, Andy Ruiz, shorter than Joshua, shorter range, shorter height, but he used the laziness of Joshua to his advantage. And that's what happened in this fight. He understood he had to have his range, and he knew he had to press on the gas as much as he can, and it garnered results. Now, as far as the future, when it comes to AJ, like, I think it's safe to say that he's damaged goods. he's damaged goods in the sense of the fact that you cannot put him against Alexander Usyk, not anymore. But we know the blood money mark likes him. So there are money-making fights in the future, but they're against other bits of damaged goods. Are you going to wait a little bit until Tyson Fury once again loses to Usyk? Or are you going to try to go the route of maybe at this point a cherry pick against what's left of Deontay Wilder? Those are his options now.
Sorry, I was on mute. While the focus of a lot of the focus in the last 48 hours or so has been on Joshua, Gail, Daniel, let's focus on Dubois here, right? He's IBF champion, coming off of the most definitive, eye-opening win of his career, right? Where does he go from here? There is a rematch clause that could happen, but at this point, who wants to see it? Then there's the prospect of him possibly facing the winner of Usyk Fury rematch that's set to happen in December. Do you see Warren trying to put Dubois against the winner of that? Of course, we all know that Dubois fought Usyk, I think it was August 2022, I believe it was. No, not August 2022, but he fought Usyk and it was stopped in 8 rounds. For me, if he doesn't fight the winner of that, there's one interesting proposition, and that is one Martin Bakole, right? In the hours leading up to this fight, Bakole was on social media trying to push for a fight against AJ in Africa, right? We all know, us being insiders, the backstory between Bakole and Dubois, how they sparred, and according to Bakole, he put a hurting on Dubois, stopped him, in his words, in gym sessions, right? Do you think, given how Bakole has become kind of the boogeyman of this division, do you think Warren would dare make a title fight between a Dubois and Bakole? Because as impressive as Dubois looked in this fight, I don't think Warren would do it. I don't think he would dare put Dubois in there against Bakole. And if I had to say so right now, were they to fight, I would make Bakole the favorite.
Frank Warren and Daniel Dubois spoke to the media after the fight, lengthy post-fight news conference. It's on YouTube. I highly recommend watching it. They discussed a lot of things. That's not happening. Warren made it very clear what's going to happen. Daniel Dubois doesn't have to make any decisions about his future until the outcome of the rematch between Fury and Usyk is known. That's only a matter of a few months away. They're going to wait and see what happens. They made that very clear. Also made very clear, the rematch clause is not necessarily what it sounded like from Eddie Hearn and Joshua's point of view. Hearn was clear about it, and I think it got misheard. Joshua has one more contracted fight available to him under the Riyadh season banner. That is not necessarily a guarantee of a fight with Dubois, right? He can opt for another opponent, and he's already contracted to do that. Yes, he can ask for a rematch. I think that's doubtful, and I don't think whatever he decides is going to happen before the Fury-Usyk rematch. Again, it's weeks away. Nothing need be decided before the end of the year. These guys are not going to fight again before the end of the year. Depending on the outcome, the decisions they make could be very, very different. Joshua may, in the next few months, have a rest, go back to the gym just to keep his fitness up. And he and Ben Davidson decide among themselves, I don't have it. I'm done. Or they may decide not to decide until they see how everybody looks that third weekend in December and figure out, do I want to have a fight with Tyson Fury if he holds all the belts because the reward versus the risk is so high? Or do I want to fight Tyson Fury because he lost, he looked bad, I can win, and there's still a ton of money available for a fight like that. In Great Britain, there certainly is. I'm not sure how interested the rest of us will be, but that would be the fight that got away of all the fights available to Joshua over his career, and it's makeable. It's makeable. As for Dubois, he's got a lot of choices. He is the captain now, other than the winner of the Fury-Usyk fight. It would be ridiculous for him to toss away the potential of facing that winner by fighting a Bacoli, a Caballel, a Zhang. It's a Moses Saitama. I mean, it's not going to happen. It doesn't need to happen. It really doesn't. I don't think he'd pick Bacoli of those three at all. I mean, it's going to be difficult to say who he does pick, but he is in charge. I think Frank Warren has steered him well, and they stuck by him, and that says a hell of a lot. And this is the payoff, that this was a guy who, although took a very bad loss against Usyk, and I discount the loss against Joyce. For God's sakes, the man's face was broken. He had a broken orbital bone. That was not the same sort of, I'm done with this, that it was when he faced Usyk. Completely different story, in my opinion. But that's the beauty of a guy taking big chances on himself when he's young enough to learn from them, recover from them, and come back. And I would say, if you're going to name a comeback fighter of the year, I think he's the man.
Absolutely. He's on top right now. And where he goes from here, the world, in many regards, is his oyster, and he's clearly established himself as one of the elites in the heavyweight division. Where his next fight will be, who and when he will fight next, who knows? And in terms of Joshua, a lot of people will keep their eyes on that as well. On the undercard, I go back to you, Gail. This lengthy card. Anthony Cacace, who scored one of the more surprising wins of this year, winning the IBF junior lightweight title, stoppage win over Joe Cordina. This wasn't a title defense, but he did, Cacace, face former two-time champion, I believe, at 126, Josh Warrington. Warrington moving up to 130. Decent bout. I felt that Cacace was in control throughout. Warrington, he's going to try hard and give his best effort, but he just didn't have enough. He didn't have it in him to win this fight, even against what I like to call an older borderline AARP Cacace, who's at 35, 36, that's up there in age for that division. He did what he had to do. He got the win. In terms of Warrington, where he goes from here, I wouldn't mind seeing him, Gail, call it a day.
Well, that's a done deal. Warrington did call it a day. He called it a day in the ring. After the fight, after the loss, he cut his gloves off. He laid them down in the center of the canvas, much as we've seen MMA fighters do in that tradition, to announce his retirement. So that was it for him. This was sort of, last chance for him. he went up a weight division after 2 pretty tough losses at featherweight, devastating knockout loss to Lee Wood, and a majority decision loss, a narrow one, actually, but it's still a loss against Luis Alberto Lopez. And we all remember him absolutely being blasted by Mauricio Lara. That was devastating. The next fight, his rematch, was stopped because of a cut, and he never really did get the revenge. It's been a rough 3 years for Josh Warrington. He's an incredibly popular fighter in Great Britain, the Leeds Warrior. Rumors were that he had 10,000 fans alone among those 96,000, 98,000, if you believe other reports, at Wembley. Were all there for him. And it certainly sounded like it, especially so early in the card. But he's had a lot of wear and tear, even at his age, at 33. His losses have been really tough losses. But he never gives less than his best. He didn't embarrass himself. He was just way too small against Cacace. He had his moments in the fight. You could see the skills that had gotten him where he was at his peak. But, good moments aren't enough to win rounds, and there weren't enough to win on the cards. Cacace controlled the ring because of his size. He had too much power. Warrington was very aware of that. He did still fight aggressively. Good for him. And we all need to wish him well. I hope he stays in boxing in some form or another. I think he's got a lot to offer, and British fighters do tend to stay involved in the sport. So all the best to him. Cacace was in a really odd position in this fight because we had the IBF doing IBF things like it does. He's the IBF champion. His belt was not at stake, other than Warrington could have won the belt had he won. Cacace didn't have it up for grabs at all. It was just an odd situation. It was because he had a mandatory due and the IBF wouldn't waive it. So now he's going to probably need to take that mandatory, because that is his only major belt, and get that over with. Possible maybe that he appears on the Fury Usyk 2 undercard, get that knocked out, and then he can decide where he wants to go and possibly what sort of unification fight he wants after that.
Yeah,
but that's his only belt. He cannot let go of that. That's we don't count the IBO belt, whatever the hell that is. So he needs to hang on to that. So he can't afford to let it go. He's going to have to take on his mandatory.
absolutely. That IBF mandatory challenger is one. Eduardo Nunez, I agree. I would not be surprised if we see a fight between Cacace and Nunez, assuming that Cacace is not too seriously bruised and bumped up. See that fight on the undercard of Usyk Fury 2, December 2021. Or if not, they could fight certainly. Cacace and Nunez could fight certainly in the first quarter of 2025. Those two fights took place in London on the 28th. On the 27th, Daniel, you had the return of Jaime Munguia. Last time we had seen Munguia, of course, was against Canelo in May. Munguia has left Golden Boy. He's with Top Rank now. Fought Erik Bazinyan, who only loss coming into the fight was, of course, who I believe was to Canelo as well. Bazinyan got off to a good start, Daniel. Fought well behind the jab in the first half of the fight, but at the midway mark, Munguia started to focus on the body and start to slowly but surely pay dividends. The power of Munguia came through rounds 8 and 9, hurt him badly in round 10, ended up taking him out. So Munguia gets the stoppage win here what do you make overall of Munguia? He's moved over the top rank now. Canelo is unified champion. The IBF belt is open. Munguia is ranked top 5 across the board. What do you think Top Rank can do with Munguia at this point?
Well, when it came to this fight, the one thing I wanted to see is if Munguia was able to make the little adjustments where he could show that he learned a bit from his mistakes against Canelo. He didn't show enough on the defensive side, but he did show that he learned to get a little bit of patience, and he showed that he's able now to focus a little bit more if he doesn't stumble in the beginning rounds, because he wasn't first 2 or 3 rounds weren't exactly his best rounds in this fight, but
he was getting outboxed.
Yep. But then he started focusing on the body. He stopped headhunting as much. He focused on the body. And little by little, he broke Bazinyan down, and to the point where in the 10th round, once he caught him, Munguia went at a pace that normally you would not have seen from him before, because he finished a lot of fighters before then. But it shows that his condition is getting better. He listened to his corner. He listened to Erik Morales, who told him he needed to focus on the body and tighten up a little bit. So it does show that he is improving, but it wasn't enough for me to say that you can really put him as like the top guy in the division post Canelo, because that's going to be a tricky area to navigate. And not to mention that the belt that's actually free is the IBF belt. If it was the WBO belt, you'd be a lot more confident given Top Rank's relationship with the WBO, but it's the IBF. And there's a certain gentleman named Caleb Plant who's still around, who's also rebuilding himself to being the top of the division post Canelo, that has a prior relationship, prior IBF champion. So it does show that it shows that Top Rank luckily is willing to give opponents to Munguia that can test them. But it's going to be interesting to see what the IBF does in this scale. And because at this stage, if you put Munguia versus Plant, as much as I like Munguia, as much as how many years ago, I think almost 8 years ago, I picked him as my prospect of the year. If it's between him and Plant, at this moment in time, I have to pick Plant.
Yeah, that's the thing, Gail, with Benavidez and David Morrell moving up to 125. The top contenders at 168, as far as I'm concerned, is Plant, Mabili, Diego Pacheco, right? In comparing Munguia to those fighters, would you put him above any of those fighters? Would you put him above a Caleb Plant? Would you put him on the level of Pacheco? Would you put him with Mabili? Would you say he's better than Edgar Berlanga at this point? I'm not sure.
Oh, Munguia is far better than Berlanga. I think there's no question of that.
Now, well, Berlanga aside, the other fighters that
the rest,
I
think the rest are all bunched below Canelo at the top of the super middleweight division. I don't think we know that until they start fighting each other, and those matchups can be made. Now, make no mistake, part of the reason Erik Bazinyan was in there against Munguia is because he was the advanced scout for his stablemate Mbili. I had the Tiger put him in there to see what he's got up close, to give Mark Ramsey a chance, Bazinyan's trainer, who's also Mbili's trainer, get a good look at Munguia in action. And that is going to give them some real-time ring intelligence about Munguia they couldn't have gotten any other way. Brilliant strategy. Yeah, they kind of had to sacrifice Bazinyan in the process a little bit, but he wasn't a pushover. He's gotten to introduce himself to the fans on a much bigger stage. Only us complete hardcore nuts have been watching him, over the last few years on these Eye of the Tiger cards from Canada, which, by the way, I highly recommend. ESPN Plus offers a lot of them, and they are never less than entertaining. So I highly recommend them. That's my aside. So I think Billy is the intended target. It's completely makeable because, again, they're on the same platform, Eye of the Tiger, Top Rank. That's where it's going. I do think down the road, potentially, a fight with Plant is possible, and that'd be great fun. It's surprising to see how much of a fan base Plant has developed since his loss to Canelo. I mean, a legitimate fan base. He didn't hurt himself with that crazy fight he had on the Canelo Munguia or Canelo Berlanga undercard. Not one bit. So,
and excuse me for interrupting, but low key, I think he's shown improvement since that loss to Canelo.
absolutely.
He's more well-rounded.
Well, and that's what happens, ladies and gentlemen, when these guys take a tough fight, a challenging fight earlier in their careers than later. They don't let it marinate. They don't shy away because they're worried about losing the zero. They benefit. They learn. They gain respect. They gain fans in a good losing effort, a positive performance, even with the loss on the record, is a net plus down the line. Plant is a perfect example of this, and he benefited from the experience. Munguia will benefit from the experience with Canelo. Berlanga will too. It's hard to know where his threshold is. I would not be surprised if we do see a Munguia Berlanga fight. I know Munguia is interested in it. On the Berlanga side, they may have wanted to see how he looked this last weekend and, assess where he'd like to go. I think Berlanga is going to want maybe an easier touch fight coming back. That's not abnormal after a loss. And then we'll see how they all shake out. But mind you, the target out in front of them right now is Munguia and Mbili. Pacheco is still too young, really, for this upper tier. I know that Diego thinks he can fight all of them. I think he needs to wait just a little bit more. I wouldn't be mad at it if they matched him up again because of what I was just talking about on young fighters challenging themselves. But I think that's a little bit down the road, and there is no reason to rush him. He is 23 years old, so he's doing just fine. I like the fact that we do have, some of these fighters are still well under 30 years old in this division, and once Canelo decides to hang up his gloves, the division is in very good hands.
Absolutely, and particularly with Pacheco, he's looking like the future of division. But Munguia, given his exciting style and his popularity, he certainly has a future, and he still has available big opportunities at 168. Let's move on to some news. A couple of weeks ago, we mentioned Jaron Ennis in terms of Hearn losing that purse bid, right? Against I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name, against his mandatory challenger. And there was a possibility that Boots would make a title defense overseas, or even possibly move up. Vacate the IBF welterweight title. Well, it was announced that indeed that will not be the case, as Boots Ennis will fight Cacazian I'm butchering the name. My
No,
apologies.
no, you're pretty good. You're pretty darn close. Chukadzian is right. You can call him
Yeah,
Karn if you want. It's not Karen,
yeah.
everybody. It's Karn.
Karn Chikadzian.
Yeah.
They fought previously with Boots ended up winning a decision. They're going to fight a rematch November 9 in Philadelphia. On the undercard, the return of Bam Rodriguez as he fights Pedro Guevara. Of course, many fans remember the last time we saw Bam, a dynamic seventh round knockout over Juan Francisco Estrada. Um, so yeah, I go to you on this one, Daniel. After a possible fear that this fight between Boots and Karn would end up in urine because Karn's promoter won the purse bid. I'm still shaking my head why Matchroom didn't put up a halfway decent offer to win that fight. Ends up Boots is going to defend the title in his hometown again of Philadelphia, and the fact that got Bam on the undercard, Bam coming to the East Coast, that's a good look all around.
Yeah, that shows a little bit of more cooperation now between. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce the guy's name when it came to Boots is mandatory, but it shows luckily a bit of cooperation between the matchroom because yes, they won the purse bid, but they also know that Boots could easily just have let it go, and they probably wouldn't have made as much money either way. And adding Bam to the card shows real good ingenuity because we always have to remember it was a similar strategy that Tom Loeffler had when he had Triple G as the main event, big drama show. Whenever he could, he did put Chocolatito on the undercard, little drama show, until they got to put Chocolatito was headlining on his own in the US. So it's smart to do this. Put your best young fighters, particularly Bam, because you want to get the eyes on the lower divisions. Boots is in welterweight, obviously one of the glamour divisions, and it shows they're going to get a good crowd. He's going to be able to defend it fairly well, and not to mention, the best part about it is you don't have to worry about all those logistics about going to Europe because you can have training camps in the US, but then you have to move at least a week beforehand to try to get adjusted to the time differences in Europe and the climate and everything else that you have to deal with in Europe, let alone fight. So luckily he's avoiding that. It's a good outcome overall.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And two East Coast fans, Philadelphia, New York, tri-state area, do yourself a service and show up to watch Jesse Bam Rodriguez. He's a heck of a fighter, one of the best, not just in the lower weight divisions, in all of boxing. You want to talk about a well-rounded fighter who can punch, who's skilled, who's willing to fight, has some of the best footwork in the sport. That is one Bam Rodriguez. So I would say to that Philly crowd, don't just show up just to see Boots. Ennis, show up to see Jesse Bam Rodriguez. You will be in for a real treat. I go to you, Gail. The other news story of the week. Uh, Tank Davis hinted that there's going to be that he's returning to the ring at the end of the year. There's going to be against a quote unquote significant fight. Word has now come out that that possible fight opponent, excuse me, could be against Lamont Roach, who's IBF champion at 130 pounds. I get it. Tank is fighting another world champion, but coming off of what many thought could possibly be a title defense against Loma at 35, you still got Shakur, who's on the shelf right now due to hand surgery. He's fighting a quote unquote champion in Lamont Roach, but uh, that doesn't mean that the majority of boxing fans are really that excited. is Roach at this point the best that Tank could do?
Yes. Yes. Loma said no. The clock is ticking. And the fans need to decide, do they want to see Tank fight this year
I mean,
again,
listen,
or do they not?
technically Zepeda's number one across the board. He could defend against him.
No. Zepeda has a date in Saudi Arabia. And Tank is, at this point, not inclined to work with the Saudi General Entertainment Authority. So Zepeda is not available if we're talking about before the end of calendar 24. Now listen, there's an interesting dynamic to this fight. If the fight is as indicated, this is not a signed fight, by the way. No matter what anybody tells you that the fight is on, no, it's not signed, sealed, and delivered. Are there discussions underway? Yes, the players have all acknowledged there are discussions underway. We all know that from discussions to tickets are on sale can be a long, strange trip and they never get there. Let's assume that it does come to pass and fans are wondering, well, why this fight right now? Well, number one, Roach does have a belt, whatever you think of it. He is available. There's no contractual issues because Roach is a free agent, essentially. And it's a regional rivalry. If the fight is going to take place at the Capital One Center in Washington, D.C. area, which is the discussion, you've got Baltimore in Tank Davis against essentially Washington, D.C. Lamont Roach is a native of Washington and lives in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. So it's a draw. It's a local draw. Very smart place. And I guarantee you that fight will sell. It will sell out. The record gate for that center is one of Tank's previous appearances there. I believe it was, I'm trying to think what fight it was that he had there, but that was the record-setting gate at that. I guarantee you, whatever the gate was, this fight, if staged there, would break that. It was his fight against another opponent that's not exactly a superstar. It was his fight last January with Hector Luis Garcia. So I get it. People want to see guys who are at the top of the sport only face other guys who are at the top of their sport. But if that's not possible, you go for the next available opponent that makes sense, that is fiscally feasible. And there's a lot that actually does make sense about this. Roach's last few fights have really been good. He's earned this. I get it. He's taken a lot of grief. He only has the one loss, of which of all people is to our friend of the show, Jamel Herring. So he's earned it. I mean, as much as anybody that Tank Davis has fought, he's earned it. And that resets the clock for Tank for 2025. Other than this, I think if the discussions fall apart on this for whatever reason, and there's really no reason they should unless Roach gets stupid and asks for a lot of money he doesn't really earn, then you don't see Tank at all this year. I mean, that's where this is.
Any thoughts on this, Daniel, or do you want to preview some upcoming fights?
No, Gail pretty much put it there on the table. It's the most pretty much that Tank can do given the political chessboard at the moment.
That's cool. Let's move on to preview some upcoming fights here because it's going to be trying to make this as short as possible. I'm going to focus on the ladies here in terms of previewing what's happening this weekend. I go back to you, Gail, on the 20th. Going to kind of go backwards here in terms of dates. On the 28th in Sheffield on the Zone, Rhiannon and Dixon making the first defense of the WBO 135-pound title. Fighting former two-division champion Terri Harper. Last time we saw Harper, Gail, she got dismantled by WBO 147-pound champion Sandy Ryan. Harper was a champion at 130, moved up, won the title at 154, left that division, moved back down to 147 to fight. Um, Ryan is moving down to 135 to fight Dixon. The question for me, Gail, not only coming off of the beating that she suffered against Ryan, this fluctuation in weight, it cannot be good for her.
Listen, it's not a whole lot different than we've seen a lot of women. Amanda Serrano is the most notable exception. I mean, Amanda Serrano has fought from, in fairly recent time period, all the way down to super flyweight, up to, I think that she's gone up to what, 140, right? The women at the top of the sport are unfortunately in this position because of the lack of opposition at that level. Even though she's only got 10 professional fights, undefeated, she's a pretty significant draw. And, she's looking for challenges. I don't mind it. If they think they can do it, if they can do it safely, I applaud them testing themselves. I'm not as concerned about them wildly going up and down in weight. At the other end of the spectrum, Clarissa Shields has had the same issue, and weight swings in the higher divisions are even greater. So I'd say, it's really the call of Dixon and her team. And, once they're the same size, the women, by their, nature of the physiology, it's not quite as dangerous as men wildly going up and down in weight because of the punching power issue. And some of the male fighters who are small and move up quite a bit, the physical harm differential is not quite as pronounced for women professionals. They tend not to fight, with rare exceptions, behind power punch. It's far more skill based. So I'm fine with it. It's interesting. Our weekend this weekend is somewhat shy of big name talent, especially on Saturday. We have 3 cards, all being led by significant women's bouts.
That's right. Like I said, I'm kind of going backwards here in terms of date. Um, Dixon and Harper will be on the 28th in Sheffield, England. On the 27th, in a strange location, I want both of you an input on this one, but I'll begin with you, Daniel. In a strange location, Fayetteville, Georgia. Daniel, you have the return, the long-awaited return of Alycia Baumgardner. Last time out, she became undisputed at 130, right? She returns to fight Delfine Persoon, who's been a mainstay at 130 and 135 for pretty much a decade. I'll say this. If this was the Persoon of 6-8 years ago, I would pick her to win this fight because of her determination and just her. She fights like she's mad. She's fighting like someone stole something from her. She's just all over you with activity and just intensity, right? But she's 40 years old now, and she's getting hit a little bit more than she used to in the past. She's also had a couple of losses that a lot of folks haven't talked about. And the one thing that Baumgardner has is physical strength and power. And I think that's going to, and she also has youth on her side. Because of that, I'm going to make her the favorite here. Other than that part, the location, and is this fight going to be aired on DAZN? If not, is there issues behind the scenes between DAZN and Baumgardner?
Well, let me look at the DAZN schedule now to see, because I do believe it was.
I will tell you right now, it is not. It is
That's what I
not.
thought. That's what I
No,
thought.
that's right.
It's
It's
being
not.
offered on a obscure little streamer whose name escapes me. It's so obscure, I've never even heard of it. This is by design. This is a fight being done in a sound stage in one of the big Georgia Film Commission soundstage complexes, film production complexes. It's just this one, it's going to be in one of the studios. Very, very similar to the way that there are a series of fights in Southern California, including the old Thompson Boxing operation, which is now CBN Promotions. They are in a complex called Thunder Studios in Long Beach, and they're in a sound stage with an audience. That's where this fight's taking place, in front of a very small, select crowd, because of all the controversy and the problems surrounding Baumgardner's, dirty drug tests. So
Exactly.
this is a trial run for her to see how she performs, and probably, in a more important sense, how an audience responds to her. It's an out-of-town tryout, is what it is.
That I was gonna mention when it came to the location. I was gonna mention this. This really is. It's more of a test because, unfortunately, the allegation, like I said, the PD allegations against Baumgardner and the way she's handled them have not put her in the best of light.
Yeah, it would be a horrible embarrassment. DAZN's pretty ticked at her. Let's face it. Everybody involved is pretty ticked. So, they don't want that mud slopping off on them. This studio, by the way, seats a full capacity of 1,800. So this is a very small venue.
Yeah, luckily it is fairly small and it is going to be a select crowd, but it's in one way that it'll work is also as well as because Baumgardner is carrying this baggage, to me takes off a little bit of pressure off Persoon in many ways. Because Mike's right, she fights like she's like somebody stole something from him. She probably feels that Kenny Taylor stole a victory from her. But in many ways, you kind of need that little bit of room to make sure that you can concentrate at the task at hand, because you're going in against a wounded champion. And not, granted, yeah, it isn't wounded in the ring as much, but it is wounded, but a champion that is wounded mentally. So you might catch a Baumgardner who may try to do a bit too much to try to shake off not only rust, but also some of the notions that she got that they're flagging her from the allegations. And that may be the perfect formula for Persoon.
Shaking the rust off her reputation, isn't she? That's the way to look at it. So while you were talking, as I'm listening, I wanted to make sure I could find for our listeners where this is being shown. It is being shown on, wait for it, write it down, Brinks TV, BRINX.TV. Small little streaming operation. It's available on all your, regular Google Play and this and that. It is home to other programming, which you'll be able to take a look at. Probably the most notable programming that's running is there's an ongoing show with Marcellus Wiley, of all things, running on Brinks TV. They also apparently show professional wiffle ball. Really can't make that up. So how they found this, who the heck knows? But Brinks TV, so if you want to see it, you can see it.
It's a big time risk on her part.
Not a pay-per-view, by the way, not a pay-per-view.
Oh, that's good. I literally just hop onto the website, Gail. I swear to God, it looks like one. Okay. if anybody in the audience has ever seen an Adult Swim show called Squidbillies, you will understand if you click on the Brinks TV homepage what I'm talking about.
That's a good call. It's pretty bad. Yeah, it's a good thing it's not pay-per-view. I'm looking at this and like, no. So I'm gonna skim your credit card. It's just not too reputable looking. But you know, you'll be able to see it. Be interesting to see, who the broadcasters are and how it all looks. I think out of sheer curiosity, if you're a boxing head, you might want to take a look and see what's going on.
It's a big time risk on the part of Baumgardner. She better not only just win, but do so impressively, because if she doesn't, I could easily see, despite her popularity and whatnot, and the fact that she has mainstream appeal now, I could easily see Matchroom, giving her the boot. This was Clarissa Shields doing something like this. I could get it. With her, she maybe have a little bit of high opinion of herself. I don't know if she can get away with it.
Oh, there's no maybe about it.
Like
yeah.
And it's a shame. Most fighters who survive something like this, take their lumps, take their punishment. They're properly humble about it. Yeah, a lot of them come up with excuses, or I didn't know it was in it, this, or was, tainted meat, or whatever that was. You know what? Take your punishment. The public's mind, the public's attention span is very short. Alicia's problem is she kept it in front of everybody by arguing about it over and over and over. If she had simply dealt with it, moved on, and then was in the position to return, fight fans have welcomed back Jarrell Miller, for Pete's sake. I mean, if they could do that, Alycia wouldn't have had any problem.
Listen, we didn't talk about it. We didn't talk about it right.
Yeah.
They keep giving Big Baby. They've given Big Baby a pass multiple times. They're giving Ryan Garcia a pass, right? Given the fact it's clear, it's pretty obvious he was doing something leading up into that fight with Devin Haney just to try to get his weight down. I don't care what he says now, right? And all she had to do was just sit back in the cut and not do anything. And Hearn and Matchroom, despite what you may think about her, her return could have been something better than this, and her just taking this kind of chance off of some off-brand, low-end network, which many people haven't heard of, and a lot of people are not going to go out make an effort to really watch. So she's in a pretty perilous position, not short-term and just in this fight, but in terms of long-term. And if she keeps it up in this way, she's in danger of being considered an afterthought, even if she does win.
That's the nature. That's the nature of if you fight the allegations without any evidence the way she has, that's the risk, and that's the risk of the situation. Because I know in the next fight, it makes you completely forget that you're a champion by beating somebody that we're going to talk about next.
Put yourself on mute, Daniel, because I'm hearing some audio issues on your end, and hopefully you can get things fixed. Let's go to this last fight here. And this one I am really, really excited about, Gail. Also on the Baumgardner and Persoon is going to be on the 27th in Georgia. This upcoming fight is going to take place in New York City on the 27th on ESPN2. Sandy Ryan, who I like her as a fighter. I like the way she fights. I like her attitude outside of the ring. She's a bad woman, Gail, and I use that in the best of, in the most positive, most affirming term. Coming off of the destruction of Harper, and before that, the fight against Jessica McCaskill, a fight that was ruled a draw, but you cannot tell me that Sandy Ryan did not win that bout. She returns Ryan to fight Mikaela Mayer. Mayer coming off of the close loss to Natasha Jonas in January of this year. Mayer has coming out and said has came out in pre-fight interviews and said that there's beef between these two ladies and she's on a mission to put a hurt on Ryan. But Sandy Ryan, she's nothing to be messed with. At 147 pounds, she's there. She comes to fight. She has a mean streak, a mile long, and she has one of the best body attacks in all of boxing. I don't care what gender, what weight. If they back up their big talk, this has a chance to be one hell of a fight.
Yeah, this is the fight of the weekend, folks. Friday night, not Saturday, but Friday night. You know, Top Rank among the major promoters has not gone in hard with the women in their stable, but the one they have always backed and been very supportive of has been Mikaela Mayer. Mayer is a draw. She'll be a draw. This fight is at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Absolutely the right size. It's got a tremendous undercard of a lot of Top Rank's main prospects. We can talk about that in a minute. And yeah, I applaud that this fight is the main event. And it is the only serious title fight on the card. It is for the WBO World Women's Welterweight title. And Mayer has said for the last few fights that she's been working her way up to the welterweight division, which is where she thinks she's got a shot at some success and some challengers there willing to come to her. Well, be careful what you wish for, because she is coming up to welterweight to face Sandy Ryan, a true welterweight who's been at welterweight, who's comfortable at that weight. As you said, she is truly offensively skilled among the few women that goes to the body. Senicia Estrada is one of the other few. And I think Mayer is going to see a buzzsaw coming at her. Should be a very good fight. I mean, the best woman win. If Ryan is successful, and I think she will be, she is going to want that rematch with McCaskill. And I say, bring it on.
No, she beats McCaskill even worse in the rematch. I would love to see her fight Jonas or the I forgot the other champion at 147 pounds from England. Her name escapes me. I go to you, Daniel. In that fight between Mayer and Jonas, Mayer was the aggressor on the front foot against Jonas, who did a whole lot of boxing. If she tries to do that against one Sandy Ryan, she's barking up the wrong tree here. Ryan is not the person, not the woman, particularly at 147, that you really want to sit there and try to have a firefight with. Too strong, power, serious strength for her size, and tremendously skilled at infighting. I think the boxing Mikaela Mayer that we saw during her days at 130 pounds as unified champion at 130 pounds, she has to return to that form in this fight if she has a chance of winning.
She has no choice. She has no choice in this answer because even at this stage, moving up to 147, Mikaela Mayer is one of the taller women in the division. And that makes you a prime target for the body attack of Sandy Ryan. You can't afford at that point to try to get into a toe-to-toe, even closer phone booth fight. You have to box. You have to use your range, your height, in order to try to frustrate her and keep her at distance. That's your best shot to win, especially in a division that you are coming up in when your opponent has been there for a long time. Like, there's only a few instances where moving up in weight that drastically sometimes works. It's even rare a lot of times with the women. Like, the only person that you really think about that can do that moving weight to weight has been Amanda Serrano. But even then, the body has its limits. So that has to be the key for Mayer. She has to box. Otherwise, Sandy Ryan is going to cut her down like an oak tree.
And absolutely, and the other champion I remember her now, Lauren Price in her last bout won the WBA belt against McCaskill. I would love to see if Sandy Ryan were to win. I would love to see her fight either Price or Natasha Jonas, who's IBF champion. But Ryan Mayer should be a very, very good fight. One of the better fights, possibly the best fight of this weekend, possibly one of the better fights of the year. And dare I say, it could be even better than Mayer's close loss to Natasha Jonas that took place in January of this year. And I think we're going to end things on that note.
I'm going to just say, hold on while we run down the list of names in support for that bout. Maybe you're not the biggest fan of women's professional boxing. We're not going to talk to you about that. But if you want to check out the rest of the card, also appearing are Sandra Zayas, Bruce Shushu Carrington, which should be of interest to all fans. You also are going to get Elvis Rodriguez returning, Vito Mielnicki, Tiger Johnson, and Floyd Diaz. So that's a dandy little card. And if it's not sold out and you're in that New York area, that's a good buy for your Friday night.
I get that, and I thank you for doing that, Gail. But if these fans, quote unquote, are really fans that they claim that they are, we shouldn't have to do that. Price and Mayer should be able to stand on its own, right? Just like Baumgardner and Persoon should be able to stand on its own. So I understand why you did that in terms of Zayas and Carrington and the other fighters on that card. Respectfully, they have, and we should talk about them. We will probably talk about those fights next week. Ryan and Mayer is the main event. That's the showcase, and that deserves the shine, the attention. And I want to give those ladies specifically their moment and give them their flowers based on who they are and what they've done.
I appreciate that. The men in the small weight divisions fight the same thing, fight exactly the same thing. Terrific fighters from around the world. Let's just think about how few Japanese fighters most fans know, and even many of the listeners to this show. Same thing. It's not relegated to the women, and I am not concerned about what's right or wrong or what should be, because we deal with what is. And I will get eyeballs on good fighters, however, by any means necessary, as they say. And Top Rank is smart to do that, because if there aren't viewers and they aren't drawn in by a strong undercard, they're going to waste away in obscurity and never make any money. So, and I will say this, fighters like Amanda Serrano, like Katie Taylor, are finally getting big paychecks because there are people willing to give them that platform and give them big money. Among them, somebody I know you aren't real fond of, but props to him. He's making it happen.
I'll give him that. It's just I just don't think he's a real fighter. I'll just say that. I just don't think he's a real fighter. And I think we'll end on that note. I'll go around the panel here. We begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show always with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com. For those who want to talk boxing, let the folks know where they can find you.
It's right there, nyfights.com, nyfights.com. If you want to see Baumgardner, it's Brinks TV. And don't forget that main card this weekend is on Friday night, not Saturday.
Indeed. I'll go to you, Daniel, from For Boxing News and the Inscriber, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk pro wrestling, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to Miami Heat and the NBA season kicks off in another month, roughly. For those who want to talk, again, boxing, pro wrestling, all things Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, folks, it's pretty much them everywhere. Twitter, I will never call it X, Elon. On Twitter, Blue Sky, Spill, Mastodon, Raucous99, RAWKZ999. Definitely catch us on there because luckily, I think as far as I can tell from what I've seen, it is near sellout for the small room in the garden, the Hulu Theater. People like the fights, and luckily, Mikaela Mayer has built a decent fan base here in the Mid-Atlantic Northeast area.
And it's about twice the size of the Brinks TV or the whatever the hell is.
Like I said, now, the reason I mentioned that earlier, because we have to remember, wasn't it Baumgardner Mayer that had heated rivalry?
Oh, heck yeah. Oh, man. Those hate each other.
Yeah, and wasn't that the fight that brought all the mess from Baumgardner? It's a bit of poetic.
Yeah, that's the fight that she won that a lot of people thought Mayer had won legitimately. Very, very close decision. Not a robbery, very close. Yeah, and that really touched off the war that's gone on between them ever since. I guarantee you the war of the two fights this weekend will come up, will be talked about at the pre-fight news conferences. And I'm not sure that Baumgardner will bring it up because she's trying to fly under the radar, but you can bet that Mayer will.
Yep. Like I said, it's a bit of poetic justice in many ways. Consider the position.
Yeah. An interesting point that you bring up, Daniel. For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is with me on Twitter, because like Daniel, I refuse to call it X. You can check me out on Twitter at Brother JR at Brother JR 76. If you're checking us out on YouTube, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. To subscribe, you'll get notifications on all future episodes of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. To hit that like button, it'll help the overall algorithm. On the next episode, we will indeed do a recap of Sandy Ryan defending the WBO women's welterweight title against former unified junior lightweight champion Mikaela Mayer. As Gail pointed, we also talk Xander Zayas, Shushu Carrington, who are fighting on that undercard. We'll also do a recap of Alycia Baumgardner defending, in this instance, the WBC 130-pound belt against former junior lightweight champion, women's junior lightweight champion, Delfine Persoon. Again, that fight is going to happen on the 27th in Fayetteville, Georgia. Ryan Mayer is going to happen on the 27th in New York on ESPN. Not just ESPN Plus, folks. That's actually going to be on ESPN. So that speaks to the commitment that Top Rank has towards women's boxing and the interest towards this actual fight. On the 28th, you have Rhiannon Dixon defending, making the first defense of the WBO women's lightweight title against former two-division champion Terri Harper. We will talk about those fights, and we will also preview the return of Janabek Alam Kanuli, who's defending the IBF. He's unified champion at 160, but I believe just the IBF belt is on the line as he makes an defense in Australia against Mikaela Andrea Mikaela in Australia. That fight is going to take place October 4th in Sydney, Australia on ESPN. On October 5th, the return of Nick Ball, who won the WBC belt at 126 in his last bout. He's making the first defense of that belt against Ronnie Rios. That's going to take place in Liverpool, England. So we will talk about all of those bouts. Again, I want to thank everybody who's checking this out. For Gail from nyfights.com, for Daniel of For Boxing News and the Inscriber. I am your host, Michael. This has been episode 459 of the Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.